Have you ever looked at your phone, seen several unread messages, and thought, I just don't feel like talking to anybody? Not because you're angry, not because someone did something wrong. You simply want everyone to leave you alone. You'd rather stay in your room, watch something, listen to music, scroll quietly, clean the house, take a walk, or just sit there doing absolutely nothing. And strangely enough, you feel better. Some people don't just enjoy being alone occasionally. They actively look forward to it. They cancel plans and feel relieved. They come home from work and don't want to speak for an hour. They can spend an entire weekend without seeing anyone and genuinely enjoy themselves. But here's the interesting part. Wanting to be alone doesn't automatically mean you're lonely, antisocial, or unhappy. Psychology makes an important distinction between choosing solitude and suffering from isolation. People can enjoy being alone for completely different reasons, and research suggests that those reasons matter more than simply labeling someone an introvert. So why do some people constantly want to be alone? Here are 10 psychological traits that may explain it. Number 10. They feel relieved when plans get cancelled. You know that feeling when somebody cancels plans you've been secretly hoping they would cancel? Everyone else might be disappointed. You're thinking, oh, thank God. You don't even have to pretend to be excited anymore. You can stay home, take off your clothes, put your phone on, silent, eat whatever you want, and suddenly your entire evening feels lighter. That reaction can tell you something. For some people, social interaction isn't necessarily unpleasant, but it comes with a lot of mental effort. You have to respond, listen, react, keep conversations going. Think about what you're saying, pay attention to other people's moods, and sometimes, even when you're enjoying yourself, part of your brain is still performing socially. Being alone removes all of that. There is nobody waiting for an answer, nobody asking, what's wrong? Nobody expecting you to entertain them. You can simply exist. Research on solitude shows that people differ substantially in how they experience being alone, and some people actively experience solitude as desirable and rewarding rather than as a lack of social contact. That's why the person who looks antisocial from the outside may actually be thinking, this is the first time today I can finally relax. Number 9. They don't like being interrupted while they're in their own world. Some people can be completely absorbed in something. They're watching a movie, reading, editing a video, cleaning, cooking, playing a game, thinking about something, and then their phone rings. They immediately get irritated, not because they hate the person calling. They just don't want to be pulled out of whatever mental space they're in. This is one reason solitude can become attractive. When you're alone, you control the interruptions. You decide when the conversation starts. You decide when it ends. You decide whether you want music, silence, television, or nothing at all. That control matters. Research on solitude suggests that people can value time alone because it provides different functions, including relaxation, privacy, productivity, and self-discovery, and the importance of each function varies greatly from person to person. So for some people, being alone isn't about avoiding people. It's about protecting their concentration. And if you've ever thought, I was perfectly fine until somebody started talking to me, you probably understand this one. Number 8. They need time alone after socializing, even when they enjoyed it. Here's something people misunderstand all the time. You can enjoy being around people and still desperately want to be alone afterward. You can laugh, have fun, talk for hours, enjoy the party, then get home, close the door, and think, nobody talked to me. That doesn't mean the evening was bad. It means you've had enough social stimulation, and this is where the popular introvert explanation becomes too simplistic. Research has found that introversion itself does not necessarily explain why people are motivated to enjoy solitude. Instead, individual differences in autonomy and the reasons someone chooses solitude can be more important. For some people, solitude functions like a reset. They don't need another conversation. They need silence. They need their own thoughts back. They need to stop reacting to everyone else. And sometimes the quickest way to feel like yourself again is to close the door. Number 7. They prefer solving their problems privately. Imagine something is bothering you. A lot of people immediately call someone. They need to talk about it. They need another person's opinion. They want reassurance. But some people do the opposite. Something goes wrong, and they disappear. They stop talking. They think. They replay what happened. They try to figure out what they should do next, and only after they've reached their own conclusion might they tell someone. Sometimes, they never tell anyone. This doesn't necessarily mean they don't trust people. They may simply feel that talking about a problem before understanding it themselves makes the problem feel even more chaotic. Solitude gives them room to process, without somebody else's reaction, influencing the way they see the situation. And research suggests that people can use solitude for self-regulation and reflection, with some people particularly valuing it for emotional regulation. That's why when you ask them, "What's wrong?" they may genuinely answer, "Nothing. I just need some time." And they actually mean it. Number 6. They become irritated when people demand constant access to them. This one is extremely relatable. Someone sends, "Hey, you don't answer then. Are you there still?" "Nothing." Then, irritated. "Why are you ignoring me?" Now you're irritated. Not because you don't care about the person, but because, somewhere along the way, people started treating your availability like an obligation. Some people strongly value having parts of their lives that aren't accessible to everyone. They don't want to explain where they are, what they're doing, what they're thinking, why they're quiet, why they didn't answer, why they stayed home. Privacy can be one of the reasons people value solitude, and recent research found that people differ significantly in how important privacy and other functions of solitude are to them. For these people, being alone isn't simply physical distance, it's psychological space. It's the feeling that nobody needs anything from me right now. And sometimes that feeling is exactly what they need. Number 5. They don't feel the need to document their life. Look at how many people document everything. Where they went, what they ate, who they were with, what they bought, what happened today. But some people barely post anything. They might take pictures and never upload them. They might travel somewhere beautiful and tell almost nobody. They might accomplish something important and keep it completely private. Why? Because the experience itself is enough. They don't necessarily need an audience to validate it, and that can extend beyond social media. They may also dislike telling everyone their plans before they've actually done them. They prefer keeping certain things to themselves, not because they're hiding, because they don't feel that every part of their life needs spectators. That desire for privacy fits with research, showing that solitude serves different personal functions, and privacy can be a major one. They don't necessarily want to disappear from the world. They just don't want the world inside every part of their life. Number 4. They can be around people without feeling the need to connect with everyone. Put this person in a crowded room. They aren't necessarily uncomfortable, they're just selective. They might talk to one person all night and barely speak to anyone else. They don't feel the need to introduce themselves to everyone. They don't feel the need to fill every silence. They don't feel uncomfortable eating alone. And they aren't constantly scanning the room wondering, who should I be talking to? That's an important distinction. Someone can be socially capable without being socially hungry. They may have friends. They may love their family. They may enjoy conversations, but they don't need constant interaction to feel okay. Research on solitude shows that the desire to be alone can be distinct from simply having little interest in other people. In other words, someone can genuinely want solitude rather than merely dislike social contact. That's why telling every person who likes being alone, "You're just antisocial," misses the point. They may actually like people. They just don't need people around them all the time. Number 3. They notice how much better they feel after getting away from everyone. This is where solitude becomes more than a preference. You have a stressful day. People are talking. Your phone keeps buzzing. Someone needs something. Another person wants an explanation. You finally get home. You close the door. And within 20 minutes, you feel different. Your shoulders relax. Your thoughts slow down. You stop feeling irritated. You don't need to respond to anyone. You're finally alone. Research has found that solitude can have a deactivation effect on high arousal emotions, reducing both highly positive and highly negative emotional activation. Other research has found that people are more likely to prefer solitude when experiencing intense negative emotions. So for some people, solitude isn't emptiness, it's regulation. It's the psychological equivalent of turning the volume down. And once someone discovers that being alone reliably makes them feel better, they may start seeking it more often. 2. They like themselves more. When nobody is watching, this one goes deeper. Some people spend a lot of their lives adjusting themselves around other people. They change how they speak, what they wear, what they say, what they pretend to enjoy. They laugh when something isn't funny. They agree when they actually disagree. They behave differently around different groups. But when they're alone, all of that disappears. They can wear whatever they want, eat whatever they want, listen to whatever they want, think whatever they want. There is nobody to impress, nobody to disappoint, nobody to perform for, and that freedom can become addictive. Research on motivation for solitude has found that autonomous functioning, being guided by your own values and interests, rather than pressure, was associated with more self-determined motivation for solitude. So sometimes the person who always wants to be alone isn't running away from people. They're running toward a version of themselves that feels less edited. And that brings us to number one. Number one, they feel most comfortable when they have complete control over their environment. People who constantly want to be alone often aren't just looking for silence. They're looking for control when they're alone. Nobody suddenly changes the plan. Nobody walks into the room and starts a conversation. Nobody asks them to explain what they're doing. Nobody changes the music. Nobody interrupts their train of thought. Nobody expects them to react. They can wake up when they want, eat when they want, watch what they want, think without interruption, and spend 3 hours doing something that makes absolutely no sense to anyone else. And that freedom can feel incredibly satisfying. You might recognize this in yourself. You come home after being around people all day, and the first thing you do is close the door. You don't necessarily want to sleep. You don't necessarily want entertainment. You just want nobody to need anything from you. Because when you're alone, you don't have to negotiate your environment. You don't have to compromise. You don't have to explain. You don't have to adjust yourself to somebody else's mood. You are finally in charge of your own space. And that's why someone can genuinely love their family, have good friends, enjoy conversations, and still desperately want to be alone afterward. It's not necessarily about escaping people. Sometimes it's about enjoying the rare feeling of having complete control over your own time, space, and attention. And once you've experienced how peaceful that control feels, constant company can start to feel less like comfort and more like an interruption. So, how many of these traits sounded like you? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to understand the psychology behind the things you do every day, subscribe to Everything Psychology. There's probably more about yourself to discover.